but we are joined today with Chuck back. He's from Procella Audio, possibly your future upgrade home theater speakers. Chuck,
Hey, everybody.
welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks
So,
once again.
so,
Two rounds of
so,
applause.
so Chuck just gave this whole story about his whole history and everything like that. I'll just kind of paraphrase everything he said. He used to work for M&K back in the day, which were one of my, when I first started the channel, I had a whole entire system based on the M&K S150s. And Chuck worked for them for like 20 years, right? It was 20 years?
Yeah, 25 years.
It was like 25 years. And then they got bought out by some Danish company, so they're not even M&K anymore. There's some like faux M&K, but we're not going to throw shade at M&K. But the original Gen 1s or whatever, those are the best ones. Then he's moved on over to Procella Audio, right?
That's right. I'm with Procella. I met the founding partners of the company early on after I left M&K. I found that we were very simpatico. We had the same approach to audio, and I was very impressed with what they were doing that went beyond what M&K was doing, specifically in terms of working with larger rooms and the kinds of theaters that are now a lot more common. The M&K speakers were fine in mid to small size rooms. When you got into the larger rooms, they didn't have the capabilities, and that's really what Procella does extremely well. And so after a short period of time of consulting with them, I came on board as a partner, and I've been working with Procella ever since.
And he's also working with Trinov, so he's got like two of the best in the biz. We got the best processor, best audio.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky to be able to represent two of the best brands. Just very pleased that at this point in my career, I'm able to do that because I get to spend all my time playing with expensive toys.
Yeah, right. Hey, same over here. It's the best time ever.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have been feeling bad during the pandemic, but I think you mentioned the home theater is getting a big boom right now. I know Spare Change is getting a nice boom as well. And you have a few slides you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I want to let's see if I can make this work here with my slowed down computer. Let me take this out, and I'm going to.
Never enough boxes behind me.
Here. Yeah. Let's see. One more click. We should be able to share here. Okay, is my screen sharing? I can't tell what's happening.
Let's see here. I don't have anything yet. Is this? No, it's my screen.
Yeah. So let me go back to.
Chuck is coming from us from his 9.4.8. 9.4.8 home theater?
It's actually 11.4.8 theater.
Would you say 9.4.8?
It's 11. I've got wides.
Oh, 11. Okay.
And two sets of side surrounds because I've got two rows, the back surrounds. And
so Chuck is showing off today.
So let's grab this. And can you see that now?
No, I'm not getting it. You hit the little share screen button on the bottom there?
Yeah, I've got it. Let me try it again here. Maybe now.
It should pop up on the bottom of the screen there once it's active.
Yeah, I'm getting here. I have share, but it's grayed out now.
Some technical difficulties with StreamYard.
Yeah. Try one more time. It's showing me that it's try again.
Oh, here we go. We got something here.
Okay.
Got a gray screen. Oh, that's you. You're sharing your entire screen. So let me take that off the screen here. So when you share this screen, oh, there we go. There we go. All right.
So we'll talk about 2006 when Procella Audio was formed. The founding partners were directors at DTS outside London. And Anders Ugelberg was the head of cinema for DTS in Europe, and Gerben van Duyl was the head of business development. And they were given the assignment to build a preview theater for DTS as they were expanding their headquarters. And that's what you're seeing on screen right now. The key to this was that it needed to be very much like a current high-end home theater. It needed to have the dynamics and impact and the quality of a DTS soundtrack, but it also needed to have the resolution and audio quality of a recording studio, because Gerben's job was to convince musicians like Queen and Depeche Mode, who are in this room, to have their recordings remixed in 5.1. At this time, DTS was heavily involved in promoting the idea of surround music. And this, unfortunately, was not really much of a commercial success, even though it was an audio success. But this room was very well received and was a success. You'll see that the speakers there, if you're familiar with Procella, look something like Procella speakers. But at the time, there was no Procella. They were working for DTS. What they had done is gone to the speaker manufacturers that we would all recognize and asked them for samples for evaluation. Of course, the companies were very happy to do that. Mm-hmm. But none of the speakers could meet all of the requirements. You had audiophile speakers and recording studio monitors that sounded great, but they couldn't fill a 30-seat room. And then you had cinema type speakers that could fill the 30 seats, but were not going to have the resolution for music. They ended up designing their own system. They went to, in this case, Italian pro audio manufacturers for components, and they built their own system. It was a big success. It worked well. Some recordings were actually mixed in the room. And eventually, after hearing enough times, where can we get these speakers? Could we actually buy them? They decided that they had something what was real, and they left DTS and formed the company. And the rest is history, as they say.
So those are the original Procellas
yes,
from DTS? And you guys are still making those now, right? What are those?
Well, that's the forerunner of the P8. It looks a little more refined today.
Right.
But it's the same basic components.
Okay.
And that building was actually taken over by Datasat, and was used as their headquarters for a while. The speakers have been replaced. We've actually upgraded that room, so it's got the current versions.
Hey, is Datasat still in business?
Yeah, they're still around. Their distribution is not as wide as it used to be, but they're still out there. They're part of HEI right now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So there's a lot of Datasat processors out there.
What else? What else we got? So you guys are still making those speakers more refined. You got some slides on current models here?
Yeah, I'm gonna put that back up. Did I take the sharing off?
Yeah.
Let me put it back on. I just want to make sure I had the right slide. So I'm going to show the complete lineup. So basically, we have 5 families of main speakers and three models of full range speakers, and then we have a half dozen subwoofer models. So let me go to sharing again. And I hope it goes a little quicker this time.
Saving the subwoofers for last.
Yep.
Here's a question for you, Chuck. Why choose Procella? Why choose Procella over M&K, Rendell, or B&Ws?
The Procella, I can talk a little bit about the Procella philosophy here. Because Anders, the designer of the speakers, is a cinema designer, his approach has always been the same that he's taken with designing a commercial cinema. And that means that all of the speakers are specified to a given listening distance for reference level performance. Rather than saying, your room is so many cubic feet, the reality is with a point source speaker, the level is going to drop with distance. So the significant factor is how far are the listening positions from where the loudspeakers are located. So when we specify a speaker, we say that it is a 2-meter reference level, a 4-meter reference level, 8-meter reference level. Basically, a 2-meter reference level is what you have with a hi-fi type speaker, which has a dome tweeter. That means that it can produce reference level, which is 105 decibels, at a 2-meter distance. When you go beyond that, the level is going to drop off, or if you try to push the speaker harder, it's going to go into dynamic compression, and ultimately you're going to blow it up. So the M&K speakers and other hi-fi type speakers use dome tweeters typically. They may use multiples of them, but in any case, they are limited by the output capability. The Procella approach, on the other hand, is to use the Pro Audio approach. We use a compression driver. And a compression driver is typically what you see in sound reinforcement or in the cinema. But the difference here is we are tuning the system for hi-fi performance in a home theater environment. We're not worried about getting something to the back row of a 200-foot cinema. We're concerned about getting something to maybe 30 or 40 feet, but that's still a relatively small room compared to a cinema. And unlike what you have in a cinema, and with some other brands of speakers that are they're also using compression drivers for home theater, these are tuned in the way that an audiophile speaker would be tuned. So they don't have a bright, tipped up, in your face kind of quality. They're more laid back in their presentation, and that makes them much easier to listen to for extended periods if you're listening at reference level. And again, reference level is specified in cinemas by THX to ensure that the full dynamic range can be properly reproduced so that the audience experiences what the creators of the film wanted them to experience. And so if I can't tell if I'm sharing, are you getting my screen right now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So if we start at the middle row, we have the P5 family, the P6 family, the P8 family, and then the P28. These are the models for main and surround speakers. We don't have dedicated center channels. We don't have dedicated surrounds. Our recommendation is that you use as much as possible the same speakers around. Certainly for LCR, they should be the same. On the other hand, they are all tuned with what we call identical voice, so that, and this is true of most of our systems, you can mix and match. For example, a typical system would use the P8 as the LCR speaker and then P6Vs as surround speakers. Now, every model on that line is basically set up to the home THX standard, meaning that it's set up for an 80 hertz crossover to the subwoofer. And that's pretty much normal for most home theater speakers. We go beyond that, though. So if you go up to the second row where you have the 3 tall speakers, those are full range speakers, and they're also bi-amplified. You may have noticed by now that they are modular. If you look at the P610, for example, you'll see that there's a 10-inch woofer, but there's also a module that has a 6.5-inch woofer and the tweeter that is exactly the same as the P6 in the line below. And that's exactly what it is. It's a P6, but we convert it on a modular basis into a full range speaker by feeding one amplifier channel to the P6 for the mids and highs, and another amplifier channel to the woofer for the lows, and we get a speaker that extends to 40 hertz. DSP crossover and a second amplifier, of course, are necessary for that. So a P610, for example, is a 4-meter reference level speaker. If you have a larger room, you would go to the P815, which has a 15-inch woofer, 8-inch mid-range, and a larger compression driver. That's an 8-meter, which means it's going to 25, 26 feet. it's going to play 105 decibels all day long. And if you've got a giant room, and this will actually work in a cinema, the P860 is 16 meters. So it's actually capable of something like 137 decibels of output at a meter. So the idea is we will ask, what is the room configuration? What's the size of the room? But more importantly, where are the listening positions? How far are the seats from where the screen is located? And with that, we can use that information to determine which speaker is best. We're not going to recommend a more expensive model by claiming that it's going to give you better sound quality, because it really isn't. It's tuned to sound the same. The goal is to make sure that we achieve full dynamic range. And so you don't want to underpower, and there's no need to overpower. And that's our approach. So the reason, to go back to the question, is that you're going to have better dynamic range in a larger space. And an additional factor, we use waveguides for all of our tweeters. So the compression driver is not mounted on a conventional horn, which has a typical kind of coloration. It's on a waveguide which has computer designed shape to it that disperses the high frequencies much more uniformly than a dome tweeter does. So the people who are sitting not in the center seat, but the people who are sitting off to the sides are going to hear a much smoother high frequency response. They're going to get more information. There's going to be greater dialogue intelligibility, and the imaging is going to be better. And that's a real benefit of using the waveguide, which we would not have with a typical hi-fi speaker.
Thank you for the question, Morton. All right, what do we got here?
So we've looked at the full range speakers. We've looked at the passive 80 hertz crossover speakers. Then we have the subwoofers, and these are pretty much all high output with the exception of the P10SI. That's a single 10-inch. It's used in the P610, but it's also primarily outside that. It's used as a balancing sub. And what that does is, in the hands of a really knowledgeable calibrator, it can be used to tune the room nodes to cancel out the peaks and nulls that take place in a room. It's not something that's added to the system to increase the bass output. So it's a very specialized product. The rest of the subs are conventional approach. We have a single P15A, which has a 350 watt amplifier. And then we get into the larger subs where we're all multiples. So the P15 is a dual 15 that comes in two versions. There is an amplified version, although we recommend the outboard amplifier, one of our outboard amplifiers, because you get more dynamics that way. Then we have a dual P18. Both the P15 and the P18 are very shallow in depth. They're about 11 inches and about 10 inches in the P15 and a little over 14 inches for the P18. So they are not in the typical kind of cube design that can be difficult to place in the theater. In fact, pretty much all of the Procella speakers are designed to be shallow. So they're not as obtrusive when they're mounted on a wall, and they're easier to conceal in a theater where you might put a fabric wall up to conceal the loudspeakers and the room treatments.
How's the low frequency response if you were just for like late night listening? If you didn't want to turn the subs on, what kind of bass would you get from them? Since the cabinets, the enclosures are so shallow, you typically wouldn't think of a really thin speaker as having a lot of like bass or.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. They're designed to go to 80 hertz, so they do make 80 hertz, but these are designed for wall placement. These are not speakers that you would put out on stands in the middle of the room. Right. They're theater designed, so that helps with the tuning. We don't have to worry about trying to compensate for the fact that there's no reinforcement by placing it on the wall. So that helps, and there's reasonable bass. It's certainly very well defined. It's going to be very clear, but obviously you're not going to get the impact that you get with having the subwoofer kicked in.
Yeah, right.
The two giant subs we have, the V18 and the V21, are the opposite approach. They're much deeper, and the idea there is to have a maximum output in rooms where a deeper sub can be accommodated. And you'll see that the drivers are not mounted flush on the front baffle. They're actually mounted in a V shape, which provides a little bit of horn loading of a sort. I wouldn't technically say that's accurate, but it does increase the efficiency a little bit and increases the output. So we've adopted that. It's also if you look in the upper right on the P860, we were adopting that for the woofers on the big full range speaker.
They are those larger ones, the 18, they're dual 18s and dual 21s.
Yes.
Just in case you didn't specify that or not.
No, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Are those how big are those enclosures? Are those really deep, or are they still pretty shallow?
They're less than 3 feet deep. They're, I think, about 28, 30 inches deep.
What do those reach down to? What could you expect if you were to go to like dual 21s or quad 21s?
Well, they're
What are
going
we
to,
looking for?
yeah, you probably can get them. I haven't really done testing to see how low we can get them with the right kind of EQ. They're pretty much going to be flat down to below 18 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And with a little, because the drivers are massive, that can probably be tuned lower. But that's going to be a matter of the equipment that you're using, whatever you're using for tuning the system and doing PEQs and that sort of thing.
And those are outboard amplifiers, correct?
Yes, we have two basic platforms. In full disclosure, one is a lab grouping platform, and the other one is a PowerSoft. These are made for us, and we provide custom DSP to match the loudspeakers. So they're not a necessity, although for the bi-amplified speakers and the subwoofers, you do need DSP, and you do need a crossover for the full range speakers.
Right,
so
right.
That's generally where they're used in the more expensive systems. If you go to the passive speakers, the ones in the middle row, those will play well with receivers. If you have a high quality receiver, those actually work quite well. So it doesn't require going maximum cost on the electronics to get good quality performance. And a lot of those systems follow that route.
That's like the P1, P5, P5V?
Yeah, and the P6s too.
P6V?
Yeah.
Do you guys make any in-wall speakers, or strictly like
we do
on-wall?
have if you look at the P5s, there's a P5IW. That is the old version. The new version is going to be out next month. And with that speaker, we have incorporated a 15-degree angle in the tweeter so that it's suitable for ceiling placement in an Atmos or a DTSX or an Oro system, so that the speaker can be flush to the ceiling, but we're able to direct the high frequencies to the listening positions. We also have the P8IW, which is a much larger in-wall, and that's a phenomenal high channel speaker. It can also be used as a surround. It can be used as a main speaker as well, but it has the same type of angle. And it's the speaker that's used in the CD reference theater at the CD headquarters in Indianapolis. We used 6 of those in that room. And it's stunning how powerful the Atmos information is, the height information.
Oh, so you do have, okay, so this is an in-wall speaker then?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, the question was, Friedrich said, how come there's no in-wall speakers? But you do, in fact, have in-wall speakers.
Yeah, P5 and P8. There was a P6 earlier, but that was discontinued. It's
What
no
is
longer part of the mix.
What's the most popular speaker in your lineup?
The P6, pretty clearly.
Yeah.
It fills a lot of it fills a lot of systems as the main speaker, and it's most often used as the surround speaker, even in really big systems. P5s are coming up though, because we're seeing an increase in business more at the entry level for us.
And you mentioned that these double stacked ones, they're bi-amped. Are they bi-amped or bi-wired?
They're bi-amplified, so it's two amplifier channels.
Mhm.
So there's a crossover required. So if you used our amplifier, for example, there's a crossover for a P610 at 150 hertz. So one amplifier channel feeds only below 150 hertz to the 10-inch woofer, and then another amplifier channel feeds everything else to the 6.5 in the tweeter.
Right. I would assume that could get pretty costly at some point.
Yeah, well, that's again, you're getting into a much higher level of performance.
Yeah.
Those are large speakers. You're not likely to have those mounted on a wall freestanding in a room. So the vast majority of time, those are installed behind a acoustically transparent screen in a high-end theater.
Gotcha. Are these typically so you wouldn't see these like as surround speakers, like the P610 with the P6 with the little 10-incher underneath it?
Not as a surround. I
No.
don't know that I've ever done a system where someone's used that as a surround. There is the idea would be full range for the main speakers, and then for down to 80 hertz, we'd use a P6V for the rest of the surrounds, and it would be identical to the main speaker, except for below 80 hertz, where it's going to be crossed over anyway.
Right. I would want to do something like this. I'd want to attach the 10-incher to each one of the
Well,
speakers.
More power to you. That's great.
That'd be,
All the
I'd do
better.
I'd do something like that.
Yeah.
What so the new stuff that you have coming up is what do you have coming up?
Well, what's coming up is the new version of the P5 in wall, which is really designed. It's the motivation for redesigning it was to accommodate the applications for Atmos systems, and so that's a big step to have that angle, because a lot of systems end up using in-wall speakers that basically fire straight down to the floor,
Right.
and the imaging isn't very good with that. In my theater, my demo theater, I have P5s mounted on brackets hanging from the ceiling, which is the optimal way of doing it. But in a practical sense, not every theater is going to be allowed to do that. People want to hide speakers.
Yeah.
So that was the motivation for modifying the P5 to get it so it was optimized for Atmos.
Do these all share the same compression driver?
There are two versions. There's one there's a 1-inch that's used in the P6. There are actually three, because there's a different one in the P5, and then there's the 1.5-inch that's used in the P8 and the P28.
And can you get this same level of detail as you could from a compression driver as you would, say, like a standard like tweeter, like a soft dome tweeter or aluminum dome tweeter?
I say definitely yes. That's been our experience. The idea is we are going to be able to reproduce real dynamics, and the compression drivers that we were using with the crossover tuning that Andrew's designed is very revealing. In fact, they are particularly good at low levels. You mentioned like nighttime listening; they work very well for that. So they're very high resolution. But where they really stand out is when the system is being pushed, and it's not necessarily playing at maximum volume level, but just when there's a dynamic signal coming through the tweeter. When that happens and a dome tweeter goes into dynamic compression, it may do it just for a moment, and it may not be audible in a sense that you can hear, oh, something's wrong, like a woofer bottoming out. But there is a loss of fidelity. There is a loss of quality. And that's one of the things that Procella owners have commented on, is they find how much cleaner things sound at the top end when they're listening at moderate to high volume levels, because the tweeter is operating in the middle of its range, not at the very extreme.
How would you how are Procella speakers for 2-channel music listening? Or these seem more like they're home theater focused, but how are they for 2-channel music?
They're good. They're not tuned in the same way that some of the really exotic speakers are. So they're in the category of a good studio monitor. So I think, just to be fully honest about it, they're excellent for it. But if you're looking for a speaker that emphasizes mid bass and has some other tuning characteristics to give it a so-called musical quality, it's not going to give you that kind of sound. It's going to give you the kind of sound you get from going into a studio and listening to a good studio monitor
Yeah.
that a mixing engineer would use.
Right, right, right. So less of that hi-fi sound, maybe less of a V curve, I would say.
Yeah, the smile curve, sometimes it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Um, Not sure if I missed it, but how much are we talking for these speakers, and are there any in-wall subs?
We do not have in-wall subs. I'll answer that first. There's been a lot of interest in it. I have been personally working on Anders to get him to look into it, and making some progress, but it takes a lot to move him. So I'd say stay tuned on that. In terms of systems, the entry point for a 5.1 system would be about $7,500 at MSRP.
Mhm.
A system with P6s would be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. There's a nice sweet spot in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. Again, I'm talking about packages now, with P8s and P6s. That's your 5.1, 7.1. Adding speakers, obviously, we're going to do Atmos these days, so adding those speakers is going to push that up a little higher. What you'll find in doing comparisons, if you're shopping for this level of performance in a home cinema speaker, is that we tend to come in at a more attractive price point than the other brands that are doing the same kind of approach. We are, without naming brands, I would say that we're more affordable, and I'm confident we're actually doing better performance.
And where can these guys find Procella speakers? Because
Yeah.
I couldn't find Procella speakers anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a challenge. We have about 30 dealers in the country right now, and the most part they don't have demonstration facilities. It's a challenge that all manufacturers are facing when they're doing this type of product that requires a very expensive investment, and
yeah.
even before looking at the cost, having the space to do it. There is I have a demonstration theater at my residence in Venice Beach in California. It is available, well, maybe not currently because of the pandemic, but the idea is to have it available on an appointment basis. So if someone's in the Los Angeles area or traveling, where things are getting a little bit easier. So that's something that I would be happy to schedule appointments for demonstrations here. There's also, again, it's not available, but because for the same reason, but there's a demonstration system at the CEDIA headquarters in Indianapolis, which CEDIA dealers would have access to. I would say the best thing is for someone who's interested to contact me, and I can work with them to see if we can make some kind of arrangements for them to do some kind of auditioning.
So the CDA headquarters uses Procella speakers.
Yes, it's a full Procella Atmos system that's 11.2 point. I think it's 0.2 and 8.8. So there's 8 speakers for Atmos and DTSX and Oro.
So
And that was
they're not using clip speakers.
no. This is a real state of the art theater. It's incredible.
Okay.
And it's using Trinov processing, of course,
Oh,
on top of
of
that.
course, of course. Okay, here's a question for you, Shane. Identical voices question: P5 versus the P28s. Same room and listening conditions. Thanks.
You're going to have the same basic response. If you measure the curve, you listen to it, it's going to look very similar. It's not going to match when you get, say, below 100 hertz, because you're going to have much greater output capability on a P28. The major difference is going to be the dynamic range capability. So if you were using P28s and not pushing them very hard, at least in terms of their capability, it would match with a P5, but it really wouldn't make sense to combine those in a system because the P5s would run out of capability well before the P28 would. But they are going to match in terms of tonal balance and tonal quality.
P28s. Oh yeah, they're a bit.
Yeah, the
bigger.
P28. Yeah, the P28 is the maximum output. It's an 8-meter speaker with two 8-inch woofers and a 1.5-inch compression driver,
Yeah.
and it will play. It's an 8 meters, so it's going to play 105 decibels at 26, 27 feet.
These pictures. I feel like the pictures on the website. It's really hard to gauge the size of these speakers.
These are all.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, for me at least, when I look at them, I'm like, oh, they seem so small.
Yeah,
but,
they look small here. This is actually to scale. So to give you an idea, the P860 is 6 feet tall.
Hold on, let me go back.
That's the tallest one in the upper right.
The 860. Okay. Yeah. See that when I look at that, it doesn't look big, but
Yeah.
I've seen it in video, and it's huge.
Yeah. Well, it's again.
What's in
there's
here?
610. I'm sorry.
Oops. Bring down the screen here. What's on the bottom half here?
There's 6 10-inch woofers.
The 6 10-inch woofers. Yeah, it's massive right there.
Yeah. And then those mid ranges on top are 8-inch.
And that's the P20 on the top.
Correct. Yep.
What are your amps? Are those Class D or what are they?
Yeah, they're Class D. Yeah, they're single rack unit, and various power levels depending on what you need. If you're going with one of the giant subs, the DA5000 can be bridged to do 2,500 watts per channel, and so that would be 2,500 watts to each driver in the subwoofer.
Mm-hmm. What are the bass drivers made out
of? They're paper cone. They're manufactured. The bigger ones are manufactured by B&C, which is a pro audio manufacturer in Italy. So they're all pro audio drivers. So they're not consumer quality or cost for that matter.
Right.
So they're all very, very high output, very long throw. Several of them have neodymium magnets, which is very helpful because the subs are extremely heavy. adding magnet weight just makes that worse when you have to move them around.
Mm-hmm. What else we got here? Jewels. And we had another question here. When is Shane going to get his P6s?
Good question. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, here we go. Here's a question for it. Look behind Chuck for the size of the P6Vs, and what's in your theater again? Let the audience know what's in your.
Okay.
This is Chuck's personal home theater right here.
Yeah,
by the way.
and it's the demo theater for Procella here as well because I do use it for that, as I said. So let me put this back here. So I've got 3 P610s behind a acoustically transparent screen. That's the LCR. And then P6Vs, there's a pair for wides, a pair for left and right surrounds, a second pair for left and right surround 2, because there are 2 rows of seats in the theater. And on the ceiling, there are 8 P5s on brackets, so they're all aimed at the listening position. 6 of them are in the Atmos configuration, so it's top front, top middle, top rear. And then there's a high center and a top channel, the voice of God, which is not, those 2 channels are not used for Atmos, but they are used for DTSX and for Oro 3D. And then finally, I've got 4 subwoofers, 2 P18s and 2 P15s. They're mounted in the corners. I have them in opposite corners. So the front right corner and the back left corner have P18s, and the other 2 corners have P15s. And they're not working terribly hard.
Are the subwoofers ported or are they sealed?
Yeah, they're all sealed boxes. That's
sealed.
A very good point. Yeah, we don't do any ports in any of our speakers.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. So that would mean no problem mounting anything on the wall.
Yeah.
Have you heard Steinway speakers before?
I have.
How would you say? How would they compare to Procellas?
I think it's a very different approach.
Totally different.
Yeah. There, I would put them more in the hi-fi category.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I mean, I'm not really going to criticize another manufacturer. I just think that their approach is different from ours. They're not taking the cinema approach to determine what the requirements are going to be,
They're based on
and
pianos,
then
grand
and then
pianos.
design from there. I'm sorry.
I said they're based on grand pianos. I think.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It's a different thing. It's the thing. Speakers, there are so many brands,
Yeah.
and it really does become subjective. So it's
Yeah.
a matter of preference. What I do like about the Procella approach, though, is it is based on some actual science in the sense of determining what the requirements are going to be to make sure that we get the dynamic range that's required to completely experience the movie, and then pick the speakers to go with that, rather than picking something because we like the way it sounds and hope it's gonna work and not compromise the listening experience.
Do you think there's a, when brands say, their speakers are like voice matched or timbre matched, and they're clearly kind of like, when you have tower speakers and then there's a dedicated center channel speaker, but it's totally different. Obviously, it's like horizontal.
Yeah.
The other speakers are vertical. How timbre matched are they? Shouldn't they be identical?
Well, the idea is to have as identical as possible. In a practical sense, not everyone's going to do what you're suggesting you would do, which is use 610s everywhere, for example.
Yeah.
Let me. I'll show you a couple things. Just I've got a couple other slides while we're kind of talking about it.
Mhm.
This is an Atmos mix studio in Japan, and they did pretty much what you're talking about, Shane.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you look, what they've done is these are P815s, but they've split the P8s and are using the P15 woofer cabinet as a separate cabinet. And what they did do basically to economize, and because it's not quite so critical, you see three speakers there. Each of the P8s is a discrete channel, but the two P8s flanking each of the P15s is the P15 is getting a blend of those two channels below 150 hertz.
Mhm.
And they can do it because it's a recording studio. They have full control over the signal path. And they clearly wanted to have full dynamics for all of the surround channels. And so they did not opt for an 80 hertz crossover. And if you look up into the ceiling, you can actually see that there's P8s and the 15-inch woofers up there as well
Oh yeah.
in the center section.
Right. So are those like full range up there? Like everywhere?
Yeah, it's full
Yeah.
range. Every channel is full range. The only thing they've done is they've just combined a couple of channels to economize in the number of woofers that are needed.
So when you do that, when you have full range, there's still like a dedicated Lfe channel, correct?
Yes, there
Yeah.
is. And in fact, in cinema, a full range speaker by cinema definition goes to 40 hertz.
Really?
That's what the requirement has always been.
And the Lfe channel is what, 120 down?
Yeah, I guess 120 hertz down.
So if you're going to do that proper, would you cut off the speakers at 120?
Well, there is in playback, there's typically a filter at 120 for the Lfe channel. So in the mix room, they would have it filtered, and your receiver or your processor is going to be filtered at 120.
I noticed in the Trinov there's that section, Lfe miscellaneous,
Yes,
and that's, I think by default out of the box is 120.
correct. That's the specified frequency, but you can actually, with some processors, you can defeat that, and you can actually get higher frequencies.
Yeah.
But the idea of putting the limit at 120 hertz for the mix is to prevent audio being reproduced by a subwoofer becoming directional.
Right.
The mixer should be placing directional sounds in the main channels, not in the Lfe channel going to the subwoofer.
Cricks or Procella speakers? Well, I don't know why you guys ask these questions. He's going to say Procella. Come on, guys.
Procella. Yeah. I have not had experience with cricks. I've heard good things, but that's about the extent I can say. I don't really have any hands-on experience. I know their sales manager was one of the managers for the M&K distributor in Australia many years back. So I know Don, but that's about all I can say, to be honest.
Slightly off topic from Procella, but were the original Star Wars prequels, were those mixed on M&Ks?
A lot of it was, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that was a lot of fun because we could spend a lot of time up at the ranch.
Yeah.
And Ben Burt, his personal studio was all M&K, and so a lot of the stuff was pre-mixed. The final mixes were done in a dubbing stage, but the real positive feedback we got was that in the past when they tried to do that, it didn't work. They pretty much had to start from scratch when they got to the dubbing stage. But using the M&Ks, they were able to pretty much use what they had without having to do a whole lot of extra remixing. So yes.
Hold on. What do you mean like pre-mixed?
Well, what they're doing is they're taking, there's lots of elements to a soundtrack. There might be 100 different elements in a really complex scene.
Yeah.
And so the pre-mixing would be taking certain aspects of the sound that are related and mixing them first, so that this let's say it's background sound. Say it's there's a big fight scene and there's lots of sound accompanying the swords or the whatever weapons they're using. That might be mixed separately and done in advance of bringing into the dubbing stage where the music and any dialogue gets brought in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several steps. It's not all done in one final step, in one final stage.
Gotcha. Yeah. They're like different stems, right? Is that what it's called? Different stems?
Yeah. Well, the stems would be the individual sources of sound, the individual tracks.
Right.
And so those are pre-mixed and then there's a final mix.
How many theaters are there? This is just totally just because I'm interested. I've always wanted to go there. Were there theaters that used Atlantic Technology speakers? Because I've always saw pictures.
Well, these are mostly in mixed rooms, so they're
Right.
smaller studios, and I don't know. I can't say I ever saw them, but I wasn't in all the rooms and probably was taken to the ones that had M&Ks.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
Primarily.
I always wonder. I wanted to go there at some point in time, but I was like, maybe we should take one of those tours. I don't think they'd let the normal folks go into these mixing rooms, would they?
I don't know. That was many years ago, so it's probably a different set of rules. I don't know. But it was we actually M&K hosted an event there where we were able to bring in some of the reps and salespeople from the Pro division, which was really nice. So they were quite open back 20 some years ago. It's probably more closed today, I would guess.
Yeah, probably. All right, that's it. Let's wrap it up here. All right, guys. So if you guys want to check out more information on Procella speakers, check out what is it, Procella.audio, right?
Yeah, it's I just want to show one last thing.
Oh, okay.
that I
Yeah.
brought a slide for.
Yeah.
We this is one of our above screen speakers. Anders actually developed this for some cinemas in Scandinavia that do not have speakers behind an acoustically or perforated screen. This is a commercial cinema. They have a solid screen and developed a system that places the speakers above the screen. and it's worked quite well. Now we have the things like the Samsung Wall and the Crystal LED Sonys coming.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who have more money than we know what to do with, we can spend $500,000 and put a 16-foot by 9-foot TV in our rooms. And so we're offering this speaker as a solution for the center channel for that customer, because with those solid giant screens, there's no place to put the center channel.
Isn't there a center height channel in DTSX?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll leave it at that in terms of what the solutions are going to be, because it's still being worked out. There's a lot of experimenting being done by a lot of people in finding the optimal solution for that. But this is kind of a unique product that no one else has at this point that I can recall.
What's in there? Is that dual 10s?
It's dual 10s, yeah. So this is a full range speaker. So this is basically a P6 10 in a single cabinet,
right?
With a 20-degree angle in the front baffle.
Could you say something about why you have designed your P10 and P15 so compact?
In terms of flexibility of placement, ability to mount them into a baffle wall or place them against a wall without protruding into the room. It was really it's part of the original design intent to make these as installation friendly as possible.
So those are more like living room friendly speakers because they're so small.
Yeah, in that sense, yes.
I would think so. They look. I can't tell how big they are, but they look like they would be more living room friendly. These are all everything is wall mountable, right? Is that the intention for all of these?
Yeah, all of the main speakers are all wall mountable. Yes. The subwoofers, obviously not, unless you're doing it like the Japanese studio did it.
Yeah, that's cool though. I like that. I'd want to do something like that. And what else we got here? 6 more. So we touched everything. We touched on everything here.
Yeah, this
amps. Where's? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple. I put a couple pictures in just to do this quickly. This is our demonstration theater in Amsterdam. This is our European demo headquarters.
Was that the same as the original?
No, this is different. It's similar, but this system was used at the ISE show last year. Mm-hmm. At the very very end of when we could travel, and we built it modular so that we could break it down and take it back. And so this is, if anyone's visiting Amsterdam, it's available by appointment. And you can see it's all P6 Vs for the surround speakers.
Oh, that's like in pieces.
Yeah, this is kind of with the wall coverings taken off, so you kind of see it exposed, so you can see the diffusers around the back of the room.
Wait, what is that? What is that? P6s and
It's all P6 Vs. There are P6s for high left, center, and right. Mm-hmm. P815s are the main speakers. One up front and two P15 dual 15s in the back for subs.
Very cool. I like that. What seats are those? Are those Fortress?
They're a European manufacturer. I don't offhand. I don't know the name. Sorry. And then this is the last one. This is CEDIA. This is the CEDIA headquarters theater.
Oh yeah, that's cool, dude. I like that.
It's Ketra lighting. It's an awesome room.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's not a great photograph, but it's a great room.
No, it's cool to me. What's in there? What's in that one?
Well, it's a Barco Projector. It's P815s, two P18s. I think there are two P10SIs. The P8 in wall is in the ceiling, and then P6 Vs for all the surrounds and the wides.
Yeah, I like that one. I've seen that in one of the videos. I think one of your Procella videos. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I think was it on your channel? I saw it, but with what was his name? Gerben.
Gerben. It was Gerben that took it. Yeah.
But they didn't show the theater. It was just like on him the whole time.
And the problem is we're trying to show speakers in the theater that's beautifully finished. You can't. They're not visible.
I was like, listen, I like Gerben sitting in the chair, but come on,
Yeah, yeah.
show me
Well,
the theater, guys.
indeed.
Well, talk about the amps really quick though, because here's the amps again.
Yeah, yeah. Let me just. I think these are on my slides.
These
So come off
these
here
look
so you can look
more
at.
these look more like pro level amps rather than like
They are. Yeah, they're specifically in the case of the DA5 and DA06. Those are made by Lab Gruppen. Lab Gruppen is
Mhm.
one of the top pro audio manufacturers. The DA2800 and the DA5000 are PowerSoft. Same thing. Lab Gruppen Swedish and the PowerSoft is Italian. So we want pro level performance. We want pro level reliability,
Mhm.
and they have the DSP capability, so they can do the crossovers and the proper EQs for the speakers. And they range from 150 watts a channel for the DA05 to I'm sorry, 300 watts per channel, and then 600 watts per channel on the DA06. 360 watts on the DA2800, which is a 4-channel amp, but it's bridgeable, so it will do 1400 watts times 2 for subwoofers. And then the DA5000 will do 2500 watts times 2 for subwoofers.
Subs. Is
And
there
the big
do you
subs
find
will have that.
do you find there's any truth when people say that you get pro style amplifiers opposed to like a hi-fi amp? Do you find there's a difference in sound quality between the two?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, there are differences between amplifiers, yes.
Because I'll be honest, I look at these amps on it, they look like the very slim amps. They look like my Behringer amp, and if I think about it, I wouldn't think that I would power my Bowers and Wilkins with those, or you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I do. I do. They're
Yeah.
certainly much better built than the Behringer. The Behringer is more of a
Well, yeah,
yeah,
just
entry level
as
pro, but
reference.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I getting into the subjective quality of amplifiers, they sound very good.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're are they as good as a Class AB amplifier you buy for $50,000? I doubt it. They're probably not. Um, but they if that amp's worth the money at $50,000, it should sound better. But they sound quite good. They sound dynamic. We've picked them. We there's quite a bit of product available from both of these manufacturers,
Hmm.
and we've selected the amplifiers based on performance and sound quality.
Right.
So they are quite good. Whether they're the ultimate in audiophile quality, that's a question I have to leave to a person's
Yeah.
budget and taste.
Subjective thing.
Mm.
All right. What else you got? Anything else?
I think yeah, I think
Anything?
that's it. Yeah.
Anything new on the totally separate from Procella? Anything new on the Trinov front?
On Trinov, nothing to announce. We're always working we're very heavily engineering driven at Trinov, and so we're always working on refinements and improvements. So there will be new features. I don't have any schedule to tell you, but there's a lot of very interesting stuff being worked on. So it's one of the benefits of owning a Trinov is all of these improvements, all of these new features when they come are in software, so they're just
Yeah.
downloadable, and
Hmm.
everyone can get them.
Is,
So
is there is there any plans on a new Trinov? Hopefully not, but is there
no,
any new?
no,
Okay. All right.
no,
Yeah.
no. There's that we've been talking a lot lately about the Altitude platform,
Yeah.
and that really is the sustainable platform that the Altitude 16, the Altitude 32 represent. They are because they're using an Intel processor and they're software driven. They effectively can become new products over time
Yeah.
as the new features come along. If a new format comes along, it'll be software and it'll just be a download. And in fact, we've just announced a program for warranty extension. So
Yeah.
some of the first units that were sold are now coming out of warranty because they're 5 years old. And we have a program where the unit comes back to us, we send it to the factory, it gets refurbished, a lot of the key components get replaced, and we extend the warranty for an additional 5 years.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
So it's a huge program, and it's the idea. A lot of people have had over the years, products they spent a lot of money on that became obsolete.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen with Trinoff owners, and it's not going to.
Yeah. So, why don't more brands do more of the same type of thing, like like the main brands? Why do you
Yeah,
think that is?
I
Why isn't it
well,
more like software based, or more like a PC? Because the Trend is basically just a PC. Just
it's
yeah,
PC based exactly. I think it's the approach. They have always taken the approach of going to the market for decoding chips and processing chips and just incorporating into new models when there's a reason to bring a new format in or make a change.
yeah,
The mass market brands are more oriented to constantly introducing new models. That's part of their business model is they want to be putting out new products every year or every
yeah.
2 years, whatever their cycle is. And that's more for mass distribution than it is, I think, for the high end.
Right, right. Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
and then there's just a whole engineering inertia. It would require taking a fundamentally completely different approach to designing products, and I don't see that happening when they have a model that's already working.
So no Trinov with Dante output, or was this fake news?
We are working on Dante. We're working on AES 67 and Dante, and I don't have a timetable on that, but there will be that will be coming.
So what is that,
And it'll be coming for the altitudes.
like a little chip, like I mean, like a card or something like that?
There will be the Dante will require some hardware, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The AES 67, well, we'll see what the final version is. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we are making good progress on it, and it will come sometime relatively soon, but nothing to announce in terms of a date.
Would there be like an audio difference between going Dante or using the DB25 connector?
Well, Dante is going to bring it. I mean, there shouldn't be an audio difference in terms of keeping the signal digital.
Yeah. Well,
There are a lot of complications with Dante that make it not as easy to implement, but that's an engineering challenge.
let me give you let me give you a couple of quick fire answers. I can answer these for you.
Okay.
522 setup, JTR speakers or Procella? Come on, silly question, guy. Come on, silly. Here's another one. Storm audio or Trinov, which is better for Procella speakers? What's the man got in his room? He's got a Trinov. He doesn't have a Storm audio in there, guy.
Yeah.
Come on, 49ers.
They work well. Procella would work well with Storm. It'd be fine. But in my personally biased opinion, I prefer the Trade-off. Take it for what it's worth.
What else we got here? Shane can't afford a Jeep. Yeah, okay. Here's one. Mr. John Sandoval, can you upgrade the processor on the Trinov? That's a question. Like, how much processing would that use from the i7? Like, is it like 90%, or is it like 30%, or is there a need to upgrade to like an i7 ninth generation or something?
That's nothing that we have run into. I think we have a couple of kind of far out experimenters who have done that, meaning they have taken the processor out and put another one in. I would not recommend it. It can be done. It's a computer. Yeah. You could replace it, but it would take it out of warranty. And we don't see any need to go to anything beyond the i7 at this point. And I don't really anticipate that that's going to change in the future. On the other hand, if someone does have a unit that's 5 years old, we will replace the processor when it comes back. That will be part of the warranty extension program. They'll basically get the same level of processor, but it will be replaced.
Right. Is there additional cost for that, or is it just like you swap it out?
Oh yeah, there'll be a significant cost for it. But again, for a $30,000 processor, in many cases.
All right, I think that's all we got. Unless you got something else, Chuck.
No, I think we're good.
All right, guys. So if you guys want more information on these Procella speakers or on Trinov, check out Procella.audio or Trinov.com. And hopefully, in the near future, I'll have a review on some Procella speakers as well.
We'll
And
get on
you
that.
guys can flood their website and their retailers and buy those speakers. Because
Absolutely.
hopefully, fingers crossed, they do sound good. Um, anything else? Anything else you want to share before we sign
That's
off?
it. Just again, it's Procella.audio. There's no
Mhm.
.com in the address. It's Procella.audio. And go take a look.
There it is,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys, for checking this out. Leave a comment. Anything else you got to say? Check out the audio portion of this podcast as well on iTunes or on Spotify. We'll check you guys out in the next.